She walks like that through the house, I feel like I'm in a horror movie. She said I am, so I hope you missed that. Okay, creepy. Alright, thank you. So, maybe this is appropriate. Hamish Chagrin, how we live is how we die. I don't want to live in a horror movie. Okay. Her second chapter is called Continual Change, and she says this. Things are constantly coming to an end, and things are constantly coming into being. There is a continual process of death and renewal. Death and renewal. This experience, which every living being goes through, is what is known as impermanence. The seasons change, the days change, the hours of the day change. We ourselves change all along, and we experience many changes from moment to moment. This happens all around us and within us, 24/7, never stopping for an instant. Still, for some reason, we don't fully appreciate what's going on. We tend to behave as if things are more fixed than they really are. We're under the illusion that life will stay similar to how it is now. Despite our lifetime of experience with change, something within us never stops insisting on stability. Any change, even a change for the better, can feel a little unnerving because it seems to expose our underlying uncertainty about life. We'd rather think we have firm ground to stand on than see clearly that everything is always in transition.
This reading is from the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verses 2 through 7, and also 14. Completely illusory, says Koheleth. Completely illusory. Everything is just an illusion. What is humankind's benefit for all its labor under the sun? One generation goes and another comes, but the world goes on forever. The sun rises, then sets, then quickly gets ready to rise again. The wind blows first to the south, then to the north. It swirls round and then repeats its circuit. All rivers empty into the sea, but the sea never fills up. Again and again, the rivers go where they've always gone. So now, I've seen all the works that have been done under the sun, and let me tell you, everything is but a mist of air, like chasing the wind.
Would you pray with me? Ground of our being. As we consider this concept of change and impermanence, be a light for us. Guide us. Help us to discern truth and direction. And may the words of my mouth and the meditations of each of our hearts be filled with your wisdom and your insight. Amen. So, Ecclesiastes is a book written by this person called Koheleth, which is a Hebrew word, a feminine Hebrew word, interestingly enough, Hebrew word for one who gathers others together, maybe a teacher or a preacher, but in this case it's used as a pseudonym, as another name for Solomon, King Solomon, who was the son of David, who was the ruler of the Israelites, the ruler over Jerusalem. How many of you have read Ecclesiastes? A couple of you? Okay, so it's not perhaps the most hope-filled book ever. It tends to be a little bit cynical. You almost get the sense that Solomon's just a little bit jaded. He's looking at life, and it feels like to him life is sort of one big conundrum. Just trying to find purpose and trying to find meaning and struggling within all of that. Part of the passage that I didn't have Ross read because it was just a little passage, talks about how Solomon felt like it was his duty to look at life, to examine all of life, and to try and figure out what's the point? What's the purpose of all of this? What is it we're trying to accomplish? What have we accomplished? And he comes to the end of it and he says, you know, at the end of the day, it's all really like a mist in the air. We're all chasing the wind. He bases his judgment on the fact that nothing stays the same forever, that nothing lasts forever. He says, look at us. Generation after generation pass by. He said the wind is never the same, but it just cycles around, but it keeps blowing. So the sun doesn't stay up and it doesn't stay down. It just keeps doing the same thing over and over again. He said the river continues to flow into the sea, but we never accomplish filling up the sea. Everything changes, and everything is impermanent. Shadron puts this a slightly different way, where she reminds us that in every single moment, things are beginning, and in every single moment, things are ending. It's a constant change, death and renewal, death and renewal. It's this thing called impermanence. But that same thing that's called impermanence that you know is there, right? I mean, we all know that things change. We all know that nothing stays the same forever. But gosh darn, are we good at denying that? She says, for some reason, as human beings, we want to deny the impermanence of everything. We want to hang on to things and pretend that they're more stable, more firm than they are. And that, not the fact that they're actually impermanent, but the clinging to them is what causes the suffering and the pain. But why is it? Why is it, if we know everything's going to change, why do we have such a hard time with that? Why do we struggle so much with change and impermanence?
I think it depends on the severity and drasticness.
Okay, depends on the severity and the drasticness, sure. And maybe you want to go to school, and so maybe it's a good change. But why, overall,
It scares us.
we want control? It scares us. Beth?
I was going to say that we don't know what to expect, and as a famous man once said, that famous man being
What did he say? I missed the...
we fear change.
We fear change, absolutely, because we are uncertain about what's going to happen next. Carol?
Times in our life when we're really comfortable.
Oh,
We
yeah.
like it the way it is.
Right. And even if we don't like it the way it is, sometimes the devil we know, right? It's better than the devil we don't know, as that old saying goes. Karen?
Instability.
There's
There's comfort in stability.
there's comfort in stability. The trick is that stability is an illusion. Right? So, which is what Kovaleth is trying to say, and what Shadron is trying to say, is that when we can buy into the illusion of stability, it's comforting. And sometimes, sure, like we've been coming to this space for 14 years. That's some stability for Alex, some comfort for maybe all of us. Does that mean it's going to last forever? Probably not. So we have all these reasons to not like change, to deny change, to not like the impermanence of the things in our life. I promised you a wisdom story, so here's my wisdom story. It's actually about King Solomon, interestingly enough. So, as you probably know, King Solomon was really, really wealthy. He had lots and lots and lots of money and many, many, many wives who don't play into the story, but there you have it. So, he probably had like 200 wives. I mean, it was something crazy like that. And yet, he was not content. And so, one day, King Solomon went to his wise men, of which I'm sure he had many. Couldn't replace him with one wise woman, but there you have that too. So, he went to these many wise men, and he said, I am struggling with depression in my life. There's just too much depression. He said, if something joyful happens, I'm worried that it's not going to last. And if something sad happens, I'm worried that my woes will last forever. He said, but I had a dream. I had a dream that there is a ring out there. A powerful ring that has the knowledge that I seek, the knowledge that will bring me peace of mind. He said, I want you to go out and I want you to find me that ring. And I'd like to have it by the festival of Sukkot, which is the Jewish sort of harvest festival and a time of commemorating the sheltering that God did of them in the wilderness. He said, you've got 6 months, I'd like it by that festival. And so the wise men went out into the world. And they took with them the story of this magical, powerful ring. And some of them went into Jerusalem and they visited the best goldsmiths and the ones with the fanciest jewelry, and they told them their story of the ring. None of them had ever heard of it. So they went further, and they went to Babylon, and they went to Damascus, and they went to Tyre, and they kept telling the story of this ring, and they talked to merchants and traders who'd been out on the seas, and none of them knew anything about a ring. So they went further, they went to Egypt, and they went to other far places, and still no ring. Every once in a while, King Solomon would gather his advisors together and he'd say, so, how's it going? Did you find my ring yet? And they would all say, no, not yet, Your Highness. 6 months passed, and they still had not found the ring. And so it is the night before Sukkot Eve when they will start their celebrations. And everyone's given up but the youngest advisor. And he can't sleep, so he goes out into the town and he walks the streets all night, and come daybreak, he finds himself on the poorest street in the city. And on that street, there's an old man who's starting to set out his trinkets and his small jewelry and things that he tries to sell throughout the day. And as a last-ditch effort, this advisor of the king goes up and he tells this old man his story. And the old man thinks for a minute, is quiet for a minute, and then he smiles. And he goes into the house, and he comes back out with a plain gold ring. And he takes out a sharp tool, and he inscribes something on that ring. And then he hands it to the wise man, who takes a look at it, and he's filled with joy, and he said, this is it. This is the ring. And he pays him all the money that he has on him, and he hurries back to the palace. That evening, at the feast that the king has prepared, the king calls for silence. And he asks his wise men, he says, have you found the ring of my dreams? And the youngest steps up and he says, I have, Your Highness. And he comes forward and he hands it to the king, and the king picks it up and he reads it. And on it are just a few Hebrew words that are Gam, Ze, A, Amor. means this too shall pass. And suddenly, all of the king's sorrows have turned to joys, and his joys have turned to sorrow, and then together they move into peace. And so for the rest of his days, the king wears that ring. And he realizes on a daily basis that his wealth and all of the things that he has are impermanent, but he also realizes that all of his sorrows and all of the things that weigh on him are also like the days and the seasons, that they will pass away. And so he lives a much lighter, happier life with peace of mind, with his ring, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. It's one of those cliches, right? Those sayings that has been said so often that it becomes trite, that it feels almost dismissive, that it feels like somebody said that to you, that maybe they're diminishing whatever you're going through, be it good or bad. But if we can let go of the baggage of that phrase for just a second, why would that phrase bring peace of mind to the king? But why is that bring peace? Why does knowing and being reminded that everything changes bring peace, Robin?
Trying to get through that moment. You know it's not going to last forever, but if you can pull on something that it will change, it will pass.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
This is a hard thing to put into words.
yeah, you know, it's like that sword that you have on and you keep bumping it, and then you know it's someday, you know it's going to be gone.
Mm-hmm. So just the knowledge that whatever is will not be forever is comforting in some way, shape, or form, Mike?
My parents gave me a book before I went to college, and it was called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And it resonated with me until forever, actually.
And also good advice.
Because
And somewhat similar. So he got a book from his parents when he went off to college that said, don't sweat the small stuff. In other words, you're letting go, right? It's a letting go process. Pat?
I was thinking too, if you are in a period where you think everything is wonderful, it would be a reminder to relax into it and enjoy it, because this too shall pass. There will be hard times ahead, but you've got to do it now. So
Yes. See, you are always the one who are jumping into the next question. Because that one passed, apparently. So let me come, to me it's an attempt to get into the flow instead of standing against what's happening in life. And the spiritual life is always about trying to not get stuck places, but to continue to move and to continue to grow through whatever we've learned. And my next question was going to be, if we reminded ourselves, if we had a way to remember that impermanence is the way of life, change is the way of life, how does that make the good things better? And Pat's answer was, perhaps we lean into those moments, we appreciate those moments, we celebrate even the small, which is why we do joys for our joys and concerns, right? To remember to live as fully there as we can. Then what happens? How does that phrase, if we can hang on to it, affect us when we're having difficult times? Right?
try to swim with the current, not against it.
Right. See, you guys should all just write my sermons for me.
When don't drown.
Right. Because my next metaphor was going to be, so if life is like a river, right? So, metaphorically, if life is like a river, what do you come against? What's in your river? Rocks.
Logs.
Logs.
currents?
What was fish? Biting fish? Are they biting fish? Piranhas. There's still water too. Calm water. Sand. Maybe you hit a sandbar somewhere along the way. Joanne?
There's mud.
There's mud. Put your feet down and get your feet in the mud. There's a current path. Algae. Green growing things. There's maybe a bend in the river that you can't see around. There's water. There better be water.
It stinks.
Oh, something to nourish, as in, hopefully it's a clean river. There could be a waterfall.
Yeah.
You could be in trouble. There's water that's over your head. There's times when you hit bottom and get stuck. And there's beauty. There's struggle and there's beauty. And if we find something that we're gonna cling to, if we find a branch we want to hang out for a while, or we get a stump or a turtle that we ran across, those won't last forever. The branch will let go. We'll end up keep floating down the river. But the spiritual path, yes, is going with the flow. Mike?
I was reading a book by Gary Zukav, The Seed of the Soul. He says, every situation is perfect.
Just don't.
How we respond to it is the challenge.
Every situation
Perfect.
is perfect. It's how we respond to it. That's what makes us who we are. Now, if we think of perfect as only being good, then that becomes a struggle.
Right.
If we think of every situation as just being as it is, and our challenge being to flow with it as best we can. Maggie?
I think too, being grateful in the moment helps you be less regretful later on.
Yes. So to be grateful for the moment that you have, to actually be present in the moment that you have, so that you don't risk missing the moment. I had that time with my mom and I wasn't there, right? I was not mentally there, I was somewhere else, and now something happened and she's gone, and so I missed it. So to be present. So, just for fun, I have a little basket of pieces of yarn. If you're willing, I invite you to take one, tie it around a finger, and let this be your "this too shall pass" ring for the week. To remember in those good moments, to cherish them, to live fully into them. And also to remember in the moments of struggle with people who drive you nuts, or the frustration of whatever is going on, that this too will pass. So I'm going to sling this around.
Maggie needs a couple.
Maggie needs a couple. There's probably extras if you need toe rings, earrings, I don't know where you can all do that, key rings. So I offer all of this to you for our own wisdom and edification, to get past the phrase as a trite, worn out old phrase, and to maybe embrace it as a way of walking through our days that's more, in a way that's more content and more fulfilling and more spirit-filled. Amen.